Well, you know, since I'm out here, this is a sign that Mike Pence is on his way out to speak to you. Well, I'm very proud to welcome Mike Pence to the Dayton, Ohio area. He is a dear friend. He was elected to Congress the year before, the term before you sent me to Congress. And he's one of the guys that I look to as to show me the ropes and to tell me how Congress works. But in addition to that, Mike Pence was chosen for leadership positions in Congress. He was chosen to be the president, the chair of the Republican Study Committee. The Republican Study Committee is the largest caucusing of members of the Republican Conference who are conservatives. And it includes the word study because it's a policy debating organization and group. And it's what drives and makes certain that we have the right policies on the Republican side and the right backing. Mike led that group and organization. He did such a good job. They elected him to be conference chair, where he ran the entire Republican conference. And he did so with everybody's confidence. He was able to communicate out our message, ensure that we were able to coalesce together and come to an agreement, and make certain that everybody's ideas and issues were brought to the table. He then left Congress, as you know, and went to become the governor of Indiana. And what's great about Mike is he's not just a conservative. He's not just a guy who's for strong national security. He's not just a guy who's for a strong economy. He's a guy who in Congress advanced legislation that would do that. And then he went and took over a state and led a state and proved that his principles and his management and his talents could do it. He has grown the economy in Indiana, and he has shown that his leadership and his principles, Republican principles, can make a difference in ensuring a strong economy. What's exciting about him being on the ticket and being the vice presidential candidate is that we can look at his record and we can have confidence that Mike Pence, as the next vice president of the United States, will make America great again. Please welcome Mike Pence.
Hello, Ohio! I'm Mike Pence. I'm the governor of Indiana. And just a few short weeks ago, I got a phone call with my wonderful wife, Karen, at my side. 11 o'clock at night. I heard that familiar voice on the other end of the line, and he said, "Mike, it's going to be great." And I accepted his invitation to run and serve as the next Vice President of the United States of America. And I couldn't be more honored, and we couldn't be more humbled. I want to thank my friend Congressman Mike Turner, a man who has provided leadership from City Hall to our nation's capital, one of the strongest voices for a strong national defense and a strong America on the world stage in Washington, D.C. Congressman Mike Turner, thank you so very much. And let me also say, I just had a chance to meet him today, but I've admired him from afar for his service in uniform and bringing his conservative values to Washington, D.C. Congressman Warren Davidson, thank you so much for answering the call of this nation again. It is great to be with you in Ohio, and Karen and I are thrilled to be with you today for a town hall conversation, but I got a few things I want to get off my chest first, if that's all right. I want to tell you, when I got that phone call, I answered the call in a heartbeat. I joined this campaign in a moment because you have nominated a man who never quits, who never backs down. He's a fighter. He's a winner. And until very recently, it was like he was out there all on his own. But now this party is united. This movement is united. And we're going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States of America. You know, I think Donald Trump, having gotten to know this good man and his family, on a personal level, when the Klieg lights are off, I can tell you that Donald Trump understands the frustrations and the hopes of the American people like no one in my lifetime since Ronald Reagan. I truly believe it. He's never forgotten the men and women who work with their hands, who grow the food, who build our roads and bridges, who tend to our sick, who teach our kids. And maybe it comes from a lifetime of building and doing it shoulder to shoulder with the men and women who build those extraordinary skyscrapers to the sky. And one group he'll never forget, I promise you, is the men and women who wear the uniform of law enforcement in this country. Would you join me in thanking all the members of the law enforcement community who are with us here today for all they do to protect our families? I'll make you a promise. As Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States of America, a President Donald Trump will support our law enforcement at every level. He will provide the resources for them to protect our families and go home safe to theirs. And he will fight to restore law and order to the streets of every city and every community in this nation. You know, I'm from south of Highway 40 over in Indiana. We speak pretty plain over there. So people ask me what he's really like, and I like to say, you know, Donald Trump just gets it, right? I mean, he's a genuine article. I mean, he's a doer in a game usually reserved for talkers. And when he does his talking, he doesn't go tiptoeing around all those thousands of rules of political correctness that the elites lay in the path of people that want to make a difference. He tells it like it is, and the American people hear him loud and clear. True. You know, the funny thing is, the party in power seems helpless to figure out our nominee. And of course, I'm referring to the media. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I mean, the media, they struggle with this thing. Seems like just about every day the national media latches onto some issue that they end up talking about endlessly on all these cable TV shows. But you know what they're not ever talking about? Anything having to do with Hillary Clinton. I mean, think about it. I mean, did you know? I mean, it was Monday of this week at a rally 20 miles from Orlando that the father of the radical Islamic terrorist who murdered 49 Americans in that city actually attended a Hillary Clinton rally, was on television through most of the rally, and said he was there because he said Hillary Clinton is, quote, good on national security. And now more emails have come to light today that seem to provide direct evidence that favors were done by State Department officials for foreign donors to the Clinton Foundation. You know, that's the old pay-to-play system the American people are sick and tired of, and Donald Trump and I are going to bring it to a crashing end in Washington, D.C. Anyway, that's what you're not hearing about on TV, right? But every day it's pretty amazing, though. I got to tell you, it's like it's 2-on-1, you know? The media doing most of Hillary's work for her, and Donald Trump out there standing strong, standing on his own. It's kind of like Ohio State football. If for their whole season they had to play every game as an away game in front of a hostile crowd with hometown refs. But the amazing thing is that just like the Buckeyes, Donald Trump is still standing. He's still winning hearts and minds every day. And we're going to win as we carry a message to make America great again to the four corners of this country, in spite of it all. You know, it really is amazing if you think about it. At the very moment that America is crying out for something new and different, the other party has answered with a stale agenda and the most predictable of names. You know, the American people are restless for change. I mean, we're ready to break free from the old patterns in Washington, D.C. We're ready to empower people like Warren and Mike to be able to stand up without apology and move forward on conservative reforms in our nation's capital. And what's remarkable is what Hillary Clinton offers. What you heard her offer on the national stage, what I guess she's going to give a speech on the economy tomorrow, is all the same old stuff. With the weakest recovery since the Great Depression, with the lowest labor force participation since the 1970s, with nearly 7 million more Americans living in poverty today than the day Barack Obama took office, Hillary Clinton's offering to raise taxes by $1.3 trillion. She wants to grow more regulations, keep waging the war on coal, and even expand Obamacare. So let me just say real clearly, I want to ask for your help. For the sake of our security, for the sake of our prosperity, for the sake of preserving the highest standards of integrity in the highest office in the land, let's decide here and now in Ohio that Hillary Clinton will never become President of the United States of America. Yeah. You know, the amazing thing is they tell us this is the best we can do. You know, they like to paint a rosy picture, right? The people in Ohio, people in Indiana, we know it's nowhere near the best we can do. It's just the best they can do. And when Donald Trump becomes President of the United States, he's going to fight every day to cut taxes on working families, small businesses, and family farms, roll back red tape, repeal Obamacare, and end the war on coal once and for all, and get this economy moving as never before. You know, I hope you saw Donald Trump's speech up in Detroit the other day. I had the chance to introduce him. Take a look at it if you didn't see it. He laid out a comprehensive plan to reignite the engine of the American economy with four main areas: tax reform, regulatory reform, trade reform, and energy reform. And Donald Trump and I are going to work with great members of Congress like this and put on the President's desk and sign on the President's desk a bill that will lower marginal income tax rates for every American across the board. We're going to lower business tax rates so our businesses, large and small, can compete on the world stage. And we're going to end death taxes once and for all. And on day one of the Trump administration, Donald Trump will rescind all the job-destroying executive orders that Barack Obama has put into place on energy. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, the other parties actually nominated somebody who actually promised. And, you know, Indiana's got some proud coal country. So does Ohio, right? She actually said, a vote for her and she'll put, quote, a lot of coal miners and a lot of coal companies out of business. That's what she said. Well, I promise you, when Donald Trump and I head to the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, we're going to end the war on coal. We're going to unleash the full potential of America's natural resources. We're going to lower the cost of energy, relaunch the Keystone Pipeline, and we're going to have an all-of-the-above energy strategy that works for the American economy. There's a lot more to it. I could give you the whole speech, but he already did it better than me. So take a look at it. rolling back red tape, trade reform, making sure that we have deals. You know, we're about to elect one of the most successful negotiators in the world to be our negotiator in chief. And I think the time has come to renegotiate the trade deals that this country has entered into to make sure that they work for the American worker and for American jobs. And Donald Trump will do that. And with the help of these great congressmen on day one of the administration, put it on the desk. He'll repeal Obamacare, lock, stock, and barrel. And I got to tell you, the American economy is going to boom. I know what I'm talking about here. I really do. It's not theoretical, because it's something that we did over in Indiana not a long time ago. It's what you all have done here in Ohio with your great governor and your great state legislature. It's very simple. That what you've seen in Republican-led states, where you have balanced budgets and low taxes. We did it in the Hoosier State. 10 years ago, the state of Indiana was kind of an also-ran economy and an also-ran part of the nation's economy, right? And people like to look out this way and call us the Rust Belt. I always take umbrage at that, right? But the truth is, some people still say it, but it's just not true over my way anymore, and it's not true here in Ohio, because we've been putting common sense conservative principles into practice. Since I became governor, we've passed 2 different balanced budgets. We've passed the largest increases in education funding in my state's history. We've invested $2.5 billion in roads and bridges. We have the largest budget reserves in our state's history, and we've still been able to cut taxes every single year that I've been governor of Indiana, $3.5 billion in tax relief. And the result simply is that today, over in the Hoosier State, we're celebrating our 200th birthday, and there are more Hoosiers going to work than ever before in the 200-year history. And that's exactly the kind of leadership that Donald Trump is going to bring to the White House, with exactly the same results for the economy of this nation. Now, you talk about the domestic agenda and the choice that we face there. You know, we also got to talk about foreign affairs. And I do want to compliment your Congressman, Mike Turner. He is one of the preeminent leaders in Washington, D.C. for a strong and muscular foreign policy for the United States of America. It really is. But you look at the record on foreign affairs of this administration, and it's just extraordinary. I mean, literally 7.5 years. 7.5 years of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton's policies have weakened America's place in the world and set whole regions of the world into disarray. I mean, you look at the map of the wider Middle East in 2009 and compare it to a map today, it's almost unrecognizable. Syria imploding into civil war. The hard-fought gains in Iraq. Hard-fought gains of the American soldier that were abandoned by this administration with a precipitous withdrawal from that nation without what's called a status of forces agreement. They've created a vacuum from which was conjured up the terrorist caliphate known as ISIS. You look at the disastrous agreement with the radical mullahs in Iran. It is for all the world, we live in a time where we're living out that truth of history that weakness arouses evil. The weak foreign policy of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton has emboldened the enemies of freedom, and that's about to change. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but it's as Hillary Clinton boasts of the so-called Iranian nuclear deal. It's one of the great diplomatic accomplishments. $150 billion transferred to the radical mullahs in Iran. Just about a week ago, the Ayatollah al-Khamenei actually referred to the relationship with the United States as something fraught with deadly poison, and he distanced himself from that great diplomatic accomplishment. And then we woke up to the news, if you could catch it, got a little buried, of a pallet of $400 million that was delivered to the mullahs in Iran the very day that they released 4 American hostages in violation of generations of policy in this country against paying ransoms. But let me tell you, when Donald Trump is President of the United States of America, we won't be paying ransom to terrorists or terrorist-sponsoring states. They'll pay a price for threatening, detaining, or harming American citizens or our allies. You know, we can't have 4 more years apologizing to our enemies and abandoning our friends. America needs to be strong for the world to be safe. We need to rebuild our military, and Donald Trump will lead in that. He'll stand by our soldiers. He'll replenish the arsenal of democracy, and Donald Trump will lead from strength on the world stage, and the world will be safer as a result. Donald Trump will marshal the resources of this nation, marshal the support of our allies, and he will confront and destroy the enemies of our freedom at their source so they can't threaten us anymore. You know, when I think about these times, people say to me, "What are you hearing out there? What are people telling you?" And from back when I was back home in Indiana and the last few weeks traveling around the country, it all is kind of summed up to me in one phrase. I just think, you know, we live in a time when the American people are tired of being told. Am I right? I mean, we're tired of being told this is as good as it gets, right? We're tired of being told by politicians in both political parties that they'll get around to solving those problems tomorrow after they pile a mountain range of debt on our children and our grandchildren. And we're tired of being told, as Ronald Reagan used to say, we're tired of being told that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives better for us than we can plan them for ourselves. Which brings me to the final issue in this election that I want to mention to you before I slide to your questions, which I'm looking forward to. And that is, everyone in this room and everyone in Ohio should know, Ohio will loom large in this election, as you always do. The truth of the matter is, we're not going to be just electing a president for the next 4 years. We're likely going to be setting in that president the course and destiny of the Supreme Court of the United States for the next 40. We better think about that. We better think about what that means, and we better think about the implications of that. You know, your former governor, Ted Strickland, I just learned on the way over here, actually said on Monday that the death of Justice Antonin Scalia, quote, happened at a good time. Well, those remarks are appalling. And they're one more reminder why Ohio must re-elect Senator Rob Portman to Washington, D.C. But I mean, my friends, the passing of a constitutional scholar like the late Justice Antonin Scalia was an American tragedy. And Donald Trump and I know that there is never a good time for a good man and a principled conservative to leave our Supreme Court or leave this earth. But the truth is, Ted Strickland's callous remarks remind us of the stakes in this election. I would say particularly with regard to our constitutional liberties, including the right to keep and bear arms. Think about this. It was 2008, stay with me on this. It was 2008, the Heller decision was rendered by the Supreme Court of the United States, 5-4. In that decision, the Supreme Court of the United States essentially said that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to protect a firearm. Hillary Clinton's policy advisor said not long ago, quote, Hillary Clinton believes that Heller was wrongly decided and that cities and states should have the power to change it. Well, let me just say, for the sake of the rule of law, for the sake of our Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, for the sake of the sanctity of life and all the God-given liberties that are enshrined in our Constitution, we must ensure here and now in the state of Ohio that the next president making appointments to the Supreme Court of the United States of America is President Donald Trump. You know, there seem to be so many things that divide us, so few great purposes that unite us as they once did. And it's in moments like this, as I prepare to go to your questions, just let me reflect for just a moment about the challenge that's before us. We're just inside of almost 3 months to the day of when the people of Ohio and the people of this country will make a decision of enormous consequence in the life of this nation. But I hope as we go forward that we lay out that choice. It really truly is. It's a choice between change and the status quo. It's a choice between continuing the same failed policies of the last 7.5 years and, in some respects, longer of a failed establishment in Washington, D.C., and doing something different with a boundless belief in the capacity of the American people to be strong again at home and abroad. But as we go out and make that case, I hope we also, as we talk to our neighbors and friends in the greater Dayton areas, we talk to people in Ohio, I hope we also talk about the fact that there is so much more in this country that unites us than could ever divide us. It's our belief in freedom, our belief in the American dream. I mean, I know, I lived it. My grandfather came to this country when he was about our son's age. He got off a boat, went through Ellis Island. He took the train to Chicago, Illinois. He drove a bus in Chicago for 40 years. Proudest man I ever knew. I was actually named after him. That Irishman's brogue still rings in my heart and in my ear. He watched his daughter, Nancy, marry a fast-talking salesman who took her down to a small town in southern Indiana, bought a house with a cornfield in the backyard. They built everything that matters. They built a family, a business, and a good name, right? And they raised us to believe in the American dream. And my brothers and I believed in it because we saw it. We saw it happen. And I really think in this election, as we go out and we speak the truth in this election, and we lay out the choice in this election, I also hope we tell our friends and neighbors, we tell the Republicans and the Independents and the Democrats around us, that this really is about, when we talk about making America great again, it's because we believe in the greatness of the American dream and the boundless potential of every American to live it in freedom. And one thing also that has united us throughout our history, and I believe still unites us today, is that from the very founding of this country, as we've cherished our freedoms, as we've lived out our freedoms, we have done so with the firm belief that Providence has been at work since the very inception of this nation, and that we are and shall ever be one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'm going to jump to your questions, and we got people with microphones, but let me lay it out for you one more time in case you're taking notes. All right? Choice could not be more clear. It's change versus the status quo. We can elect someone who literally personifies the failed establishment in Washington, D.C., decades of a failed establishment, or we can choose a leader, a fighter, a truth teller who will fight every day to make America strong at home and abroad again. So here's the choice. If you want a president who will protect this nation, rebuild our military, confront radical Islamic terrorism, and rid the world of ISIS, if you want a president who will restore law and order and provide the law enforcement community of this country with the resources and the support that they need and deserve, if you want a president who will cut taxes, grow our economy, squeeze every nickel out of that bloated federal bureaucracy, and repeal Obamacare lock, stock, and barrel, if you want a president who will build strong borders, build a wall, and enforce our laws for the citizens of this nation, and if you want a president If you want a president who will join these reformers in Washington, D.C. to upend the status quo and uphold the Constitution of the United States, I want to say to you here in Ohio, there is only one choice in this election. That man is ready. This movement is ready. This country is ready. So let's go make Donald Trump the 45th President of the United States. And when we do, we will make America great again. Thank you all. Thanks for letting me get that off my chest. I really do believe, I want you to hear that. I want you to hear it from my heart, because I really do believe that this is such an important time in the life of our nation. It's important that we remind each other what we might already know. Okay? I mean, pay more careful attention to what we already know, in order that you might go and tell your neighbors and friends. Because let me tell you a little bit of a secret. All the cable TV shows in the world, all the front page articles in the world, all the website stories and tweets and Instagrams don't matter a hill of beans to the impact that you can have sitting down with a friend who knows you, who respects you, and telling them how important it is that Donald Trump is the next president of the United States. So I want you to do it. Take what you've heard, take it to heart, and take it to your neighbors, your friends, your co-workers, people in your communities of faith. That's where the difference is going to be made. So thank you. Hey, share with me your first name, and thank you for standing up.
My name is Jack.
Hi, Jack.
Thank you for coming to Dayton, Ohio today, Governor Pence.
It's great.
I'd like to ask you, if Hillary Clinton should become the President of the United States, would she have Edwin Snowden as her security advisor?
Thanks, Jack. Hillary Clinton is never going to become President of the United States of America. Let's go. Okay. Where are we going? Where's my next microphone guy here? Yeah. Yes, sir. What's your name, sir?
Be president for the next 8 years?
I'm sorry?
After this first 8 years of Trump, are you ready to be president for the following 8 years?
Let me tell you, I have one president in mind, and but I will tell you that I'm so incredibly humbled to have been asked to run with this good man. I truly do believe that Donald Trump is going to be a great president of the United States. I believe that. I said that to some of my former colleagues a few minutes ago. But to see him when the Klieg lights are off, really and truly, to see him among the people that have worked for him in some cases for years and for decades, is to see someone that has that great combination that I most admire in leaders, whether they be in public life or in private life. And that is, he's someone with high standards. He really is. All right? I mean, to be around him in his place of business, you know, everybody knows it better be right. It's got to be right. Right? But you also sense among the people who work for him how much he cares about them, and his fondness for them, and his respect for them. The ground is really level around Donald Trump. In ways, sometimes you get around leaders who kind of make their importance felt among their subordinates, right? I worked in Washington, D.C., and there's a fair number of people that do that in Washington, aren't there, Mike? He's not one of them. But he's not that way. I mean, when you're out with Donald Trump at one of his places of business, he stops and talks as much with the people that are doing the groundskeeping, the elevator operators, the guys that are cleaning up, as he's talking to the CEOs and the other people. It really is remarkable. And I think that combination, high standards, a deep respect for people, and a common touch, those are qualities of a great president, and I can't wait to serve with him. Yes, sir. Hi, what's your name?
Charles.
Hi, Charles.
I grew up in South Bend, Indiana. I was born and raised there.
Where?
And, Mishawaka, actually.
Oh, Mishawaka?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
So
Wonderful.
I've seen what you've done for our state, and I want to thank you very much for
Thank
what
you,
you've
man.
done. That was incredible.
Hoosiers have done it. Hoosiers have done it. Appreciate it.
How do you anticipate bringing the Indiana recovery to the rest of the world, or the rest of the country?
Well, thank you for the wonderful question. Mishawaka is a great community. I would say to you, it's one of the things, and I mentioned Indiana today because Donald Trump is always telling me to talk about Indiana. And he said, I know you Hoosiers, you're kind of, you're modest in your DNA, right? And that's kind of my nature, right? I saw a tweet the other day, had a picture of me. I was out for a motorcycle ride. We do a governor's ride every year, and there was a picture of me on the motorcycle, and underneath it said, "Born to be mild," which I thought was really funny. I thought that was really good. But I would say he's constantly telling me talk about Indiana because I think Indiana and to the same extent Ohio are both places that have shown that when you put conservative principles into practice, they work every time. They really do, right? I mean, you take those kitchen table principles that work for every family, every small business. You start and the outgo doesn't exceed the income, right? Right? You work to live within your means. Let people keep more of what they earn. You make the right investments in education and in roads and bridges and even health care. You take 3 steps back and people do what they do. And I got to tell you, that's exactly the philosophy that Donald Trump's going to bring to Washington, D.C. I truly do believe that when you look at that speech on Monday, and I bet the speech tomorrow, I'm not getting ahead of it, okay, I bet we're going to hear a whole lot about regulations. We're going to hear a whole lot about green jobs. We're going to hear a whole lot about all the stuff she's talked about before. But it's all going to ultimately be about what the government can do to get the economy going again. Donald Trump and I know that the American people hold the keys to reviving the American economy. Giving them more freedom, more resources, more flexibility is a pathway toward prosperity. Okay? Thanks, man. Okay, over here. Yes, sir.
All right. Hi, Mike. I'm Jerry Green.
Hi, Jerry.
We met about 12 years ago at a posthumous award ceremony for a Normandy lander, Silver Star. And myself and some of the fellows with the VVA in that area asked you that day, when you run for president, are you going to still say then what you're saying today? You looked me in the eye, you put your hand on my shoulder, and you said, Jerry, if I don't, come and get me. And I said, trust me, we will. So, thank you. He's one of the most honest political people I've ever met in my life because he's done what he said he would do, and he won't change.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you. I'm humbled by that. I'm very humbled by that. Thank you.
You graciously signed this for me. I didn't ask you. You did it and sent the picture to me that day. Your aide took the picture. But my question is,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
how quickly can we see a turnaround for all the Vietnam veterans, those World War II veterans that are still here, those Iraq and Afghanistan veterans? How soon can we see a turnaround for them to get the fair treatment they're supposed to get, which they haven't gotten?
Thank you for being such a great advocate over the last 12 years. And Jerry mentioned it. Would the women and men in the room who've worn the uniform of the United States please stand? All of our veterans, please stand. Would you just give us a chance to say thank you one more time? Thank you, Jerry. Thank you so much. And I have to tell you, this is a source of great passion for Donald Trump and for me. And I'm incredibly proud of the fact we were at the VFW. I'd recommend that speech to your attention. About a week and a half ago, Donald Trump laid out a 10-point plan. And I promise you, this man is a builder, he's a doer, he's a CEO, and on day one, he's going to fix the Veterans Health Administration and make sure it provides world-class health care to everyone who's earned it in the uniform of the United States. We're not, for those of you, I'm the son of a combat veteran, and I'm the proud father of a United States Marine. Thank you. But those of us who did not follow a path in our lives into uniform always should be reminded, we're not talking about benefits for veterans. We're talking about earned. And we're talking about that which you earned in the uniform of the United States when you risked all for us. And Donald Trump is passionate about it. He's got a plan to turn it around. But also, let's be clear. When I became governor of the state of Indiana, one of the most troubling aspects of life in Indiana was the veterans' unemployment rate was considerably higher than the average unemployment rate in Indiana, and we went after it. We did job fairs. We doubled the budget for the Veterans Affairs Administration in the state of Indiana. We changed policies so that if you got certified in the military to provide a certain job, that certification would translate over to the private sector. We went after it as hard as we possibly could in government contracting for veteran-owned businesses, and I'm very humbled to tell you what the people of Indiana accomplished. We now have the second lowest unemployment rate for veterans in the United States of America, in the state of Indiana. And that's what we're going to do on the national level. Okay? I mean, these men and women like your congressman over here who served and came home, we owe them a debt we can never fully repay. But making sure that they have opportunities to live and experience the American dream that they fought so nobly to defend. It's going to be a top priority of our administration. Thank you, Jerry.
Governor, we have time for one more question.
Okay.
My name is Shirley. I'd like to thank you for coming to the great city of Moraine, Ohio. You're actually in Moraine.
I'm in Moreno.
You are. And I'd actually like to also thank Mike Turner. I'd hate for him to come and us not thank him on behalf of our city for what he did at FIAL. So give Mike Turner a big hand.
Why don't you give Mike Turner a standing ovation? I'm telling you what, this guy's been at it a long time, and he has never wavered in his commitment to conservative values.
And now for my question. When you said Hillary Clinton on the Heller Act, I wonder if she'd do the same thing with DOMA, because in 2006, I believe, we voted in defense of marriage, and the Supreme Court took away our vote. We voted overwhelmingly to be a Defense of Marriage Act state, and when they did that great ruling, they disenfranchised millions of people in the great state of Ohio. So will we get that? If she brings that back to the city and state, will she bring back DOMA?
That's very, very clever. That's very clever. I thought, Shirley, let me say to you, you draw it into high relief. I think it's just so important that we understand this. That this election, and it is through tragic circumstances in the passing of the late and great Justice Antonin Scalia, and I don't attribute those accolades lightly. This was a man whose intellect, whose character, whose conviction about the Constitution of the United States of America was, and will be celebrated for centuries in this country. It truly will. But to lose him at such a time as this, and to have now literally the Supreme Court hanging in the balance in this election is something we can't lose that to the whole discussion in this election. I mean, the media gets up every day and they have to make news, right? So they tend to major in the minors and they just chase after things. These are the majors. These are the majors. The next president of the United States could appoint up to 3 members of the Supreme Court of the United States, which if you do the math and the relative age of a Supreme Court appointment, literally that could dictate the direction of the court for 3 and 4 decades in this country. And given the significance and the role that the Supreme Court plays in our lives in so many different ways, that the American people need to reflect on this. But I actually think at some level it is altogether fitting that decision about the fundamental direction of the Supreme Court is completely in the hands of the American people this November. Where it belongs. Where it belongs. But we just have to make sure our neighbors and friends know about that. I mean, if you cherish the sanctity of life, if you cherish our basic liberties, if you cherish the Second Amendment of the Constitution, you just need to know that institution which will define, and I'm pro-life, I don't apologize for it, okay? I stand for the sanctity of life. But the ability of states to provide reasonable regulation and limitations on behalf of the sanctity of all of these things are going to be debated in the coming Supreme Court. And so as you leave here today, I really hope, Shirley, that you have a burden on your heart, and everyone here has a burden on your heart, to go out and tell somebody about that. Tell them that you know that Ohio's going to loom large, as you always do, in deciding who the next president will be. But the choice is so dramatic, particularly with regard to the institution of the Supreme Court, that we've just got to help people count the cost. But I want to say to you, I believe if we do that, I believe when we do that, if we just work our hearts out over the next 3 months, if we don't rest, if we don't relent, if we just go find somebody and just say, I just want to sit down with you for 5 minutes and tell you why this good man will be a great president, tell you what the stakes are in this election, tell you why we got to get behind our soldiers again and rebuild our military, and we've got to stand by our veterans in this country, why we've got to get behind people that are working hard in America and get Washington, D.C. off their backs by lowering taxes, cutting regulation, repealing Obamacare, and we've got to elect a president who's going to put constitutional conservatives who believe in limited government on the Supreme Court of the United States. We go out and tell that story. I know that Ohio, again, is going to lead the way when we elect Donald Trump as the 45th President of the United States of America. So let's go get it done. Let's do the work, and let's make America great again. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming out. It's wonderful to be in Ohio. We'll be back again and often. God bless you.